How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball. Welcome back to some more content for you guys. Today, what we're going to be looking at is our overrated Premier League 11. So we're going to have a deep search into the Premier League and see which players have been overrated by the general consensus of Premier League fans, as well as their clubs. And me and Tim have both picked our both overrated Premier League 11, and we're going to have a bit of a debate to see which players go in there. And we're going to go for a 4-3-3 formation. And let's start off with the goalkeeper. I haven't seen Sim's team, but I have a feeling we have gone for the same player here. And the player, well, who have you picked, Tim?
Ramsdale.
Surprise, surprise. I think we've gone for the exact same player here.
Well, should we say overrated? He's been dropped now, so
yeah.
How rated he is anymore, even by his own manager.
Yeah, look, I think there was a stat that Sky Sports brought up comparing Raya to Ramsdale, and he's made 6 errors since the beginning of last season. I think he makes countless amounts of mistakes during the season. I think his kicking is overrated as well, playing out the back, even though, look, I actually think he is a decent keeper, but the way Arsenal fans and maybe even some Premier League fans go on about him, makes him sound like he's one of the top leading Premier League goalkeepers, and he's just not.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think his positioning isn't so great. I don't think he's the most amazing shot stopper. I think a lot of the big moments he's had in Arsenal shirt, like he's had some like big saves. I remember like that he saved this a free kick from Leicester and all this kind of stuff that went viral. And like I think it's because he's got a good personality. He's like a cheeky chappy. He's got a big smile, and that's what makes people think he's like an amazing goalkeeper. And I just think that he makes too many mistakes. He's not as good. He's not one of the top keepers in the Premier League, in my opinion. I think he's very overrated. He should be at a mid-table team. Don't think he's a horrific goalkeeper, but for people thinking he's the top keeper in the league, I think there's a reason he's not England number one, and people like Pope and Pickford are picked ahead of him for for England. I think there's a reason for that. I just think he's nothing special.
To be fair, I wouldn't really put Southgate's like picks in the conversation with the players that Southgate picks every time. But look, I actually think with the words that you're saying there, you're underrating him a little bit. I do think he's better than maybe an average, a mid-table club or something like that. I don't think
he's a top 6 keeper, is my point.
Top 6. I mean, I think who's the top 6? Would you say?
Spurs, United, City, Liverpool, Chelsea.
Yeah, out of them, I think he gets into the Chelsea team, but apart from that,
I don't think
Sanchez
he gets. Is a top 6 keeper.
Yeah, that's true as well. So look, anyway, Aaron Ramsdale gets in there as a goalkeeper, very accepted by the panel here. But let's go on to right back, and I got a feeling we're going to have a bit of an argument here.
So I went first last time.
I went for your favourite, Trent Alexander-Arnold.
You went for Trent. And I went for Reece James.
I know you did.
How can you say Trent is overrated?
How?
Yeah.
Because I think I really rate Trent. I think he's a top right back. But I think there's like an aura around Trent that he's like the best Premier League right back of all time, or one of the best Premier League right backs of all time. And I think going forward, people have a point. But to be one of the best Premier League right backs of all time, you need to have the whole package. And I just don't think he has that whole package. I think defensively he's poor. Going forward, he's unbelievable. But I think to rate him as one of the best Premier League right backs, you need to have a solid defensive mind behind you. And I just don't think he has that.
I think when Liverpool have a good team, when they have a consistent team that's well functioning, I think they cover for Trent very, very well, and he doesn't get exposed as much. And I think that's why they won a league title. That's when they've won They've got to 3 Champions League finals with Trent in the side as well. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think having that kind of quality is so hard to come by. And I think for me, on the ball, best right back in the world, in my opinion. And off the ball, he's lacking a bit, potentially. I think maybe you could say...
that's the whole point right there. You're saying he's lacking a bit.
On the ball in the world. So that has to basically overcome anything off the ball, in my opinion.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because you have to have both sets. If you're going to be considered as one of the best right backs in Premier League history, you have to have everything in your game.
Who's better than him?
Who's better than him?
Kyle Walker. Maybe I'll say Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker.
No, come off it.
I mean, he was better than him last season.
Come off it. So what? He's not better than him overall.
I think he's better defensively, and I think he's got that much going forward that I mean, I just think I actually like I said, I rate Trent Alexander-Arnold, but I think the way people go on about him is overrating him.
What? But who's better? I'm saying
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's better than him or not. We're talking about which is overrated.
Yeah,
and we're talking about.
And I'm saying Reece James is overrated because he's seen as one of the best right backs in the Premier League, and I don't know why he has that reputation. In my opinion, I don't know what he's done to garner that reputation. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. The guy can't stay fit. He's played 40 games in his last 2 seasons, so he can barely get on the pitch. And he's had one good season in his career, pretty much, and that was he got 9 assists and 5 goals in 26 games, and that's a good season. Don't get me wrong, but for a player to be considered one of the best right backs in the league, he has to be doing it consistently over a consistent period. Now, he broke into the Chelsea team in 2019. That's 5 years ago. He's had one good season in 5 years, and people are considering him the best right back in the league. I don't understand why. I think when he's played last season, I don't think he was anything special. To be honest, when he's played the last 2 seasons, I don't think he's been anything special. So I think that, for me, that is overrated. I don't know why he's considered so highly thought of. I don't know why he's thought about as one of the best. For me, he doesn't touch Trent. He doesn't even get near Trent.
For me, a fully fit Reece James gets over Trent in the England team. For me. And I think that he's got more of a well-rounded game in his repertoire than Trent does. I think Trent is very lopsided on the attacking side of things, which, yes, he is one of the best in the world in that sense. But Trent Reece is a much more well-rounded player. He's much better defensively, and he's still good going forward.
Based on what? One good season?
Based on what he's shown in the Chelsea shirt. Yes, injuries have held him back, and but when he is on the pitch, he's always one of the best players for Chelsea.
I don't agree. I don't think he is all the time. I think Tuchel even played him a right centre back because he didn't have the fitness to play a right wing back.
Yeah, when he was coming back from injury at the time.
No, it wasn't coming back from injury. He was in this team and he was playing a right centre back because he didn't trust his fitness. He couldn't get up and down the pitch.
Because he's had injury problems.
No, it's not because he had injury problems. He was consistently playing there because of fitness issues, not because of injury problems. It was fitness issues.
It was fitness issues when coming back from injury.
It was very well detailed by Tuchel that he thinks that Reece James didn't have the fitness to be a wing back in his system, get up and down the pitch. It wasn't just about injuries. It was when he was fully in the team, integrated in the team after he's come back from injury. It wasn't just like a game after coming back from injury. He's now a right centre back. It was a consistent position for him under Tuchel, and that was for a reason, in my opinion.
How many games did he play there?
He played quite a few games. He played quite a few games. No,
5?
He played a few games there. Quite a few. Probably over 10, I would say, in that season. I think that last season, when he was on the pitch, I don't think he was very good. Look, Chelsea were very bad last season, but if you're going to use Trent's performances last season as a stick to beat him with, I'm going to use the Reece James performance last season to stick to beat him with. And I thought he was pretty bad last season. I think it was worse than Trent last season, in my opinion. And I think he's had one good season in his career. And I think consistently he's been out injured. I think, yes, he's had good performances, but by and large, I think he's been. I think people look at some good performances and they put that into a category of consistently good when he has never been consistently good, Reece James, whereas Trent has.
The only reason I rate both of these players very, very highly. Do you rate both of them very highly, or you don't rate?
Reece. I rate Reece as a good right back when he's fit, but we haven't seen it ever. It's been 5 seasons since he's been in the team. We just haven't. I can't sit here and say we've ever seen a good consistent Reece James.
I disagree. I think we have seen I think every time he's on the pitch, he performs well. I really believe that. And I rate Reece James so highly. I rate Trent so highly. But I just feel like the way that people talk about Trent is a massive overrating of the player. As much as he's a great player, the way people talking about him is just not his level. And you've got to put him in as the overrated.
I think he's world-class.
He's world-class in one facet of his game.
I think he's a world-class footballer, world-class right back.
He's world-class when he's on the ball and asked to attack, but when he's asked to do anything the other way, he's lacking all the time.
I don't think he's as bad as you're saying.
You're talking about you need other players to fill in for him and cover him every time. And if he doesn't have that, then he gets found out.
I think Liverpool last season went through a tough period. I don't think it was just him. I think the whole system was dysfunctional and he was getting caught out.
You can say the same about a lot of players.
Robertson also had a terrible season last season. I wouldn't say just because of that he can't defend. He can defend. And I'm not saying Trent's biggest strength is his defending.
Is he a good defender?
I think he's a better defender than you're saying.
But is he a good defender?
I think he's a decent defender, yeah.
Is that good or not?
Decent defender. I think he's the best.
Out of 10, what is he in defence?
I think it's probably out of 10. I would say he's probably a 6.
6?
Yeah.
I would say a bit less than that. I would go probably 5. I would say attack, he's about
I'd say 10.
an 8 or a 9.
8?
Maybe
Trent.
9.
He's a 10.
I'll give him a 9.
He's a 10. Who's better on the ball than Trent? He has to be a 10. How can he not?
I'll give him a 9. I'll give him a 9. I'll give him a 9. It's a 9 is a very high rating.
How can he not be a 10? If he's the best in the world, how can he not be a 10?
Is he the best in the world? I'm trying to think of other right backs in world football.
How can you say anyone is better than Trent on the ball? It's madness. He's got the best pass. Anyway, we've been on this for 10 minutes, but I think he's the best in the world on the ball, Trent. I think he's absolutely world class. He can put it on the money any time, any place. He's incredible. He's a generational talent. Generational. I really believe that.
In one facet of his game.
As a player, as a right back, with his passing, his crossing.
But how can he be a generational talent if you're giving him a 6 out of 10 at defending? He's a right back. He's a defender. And he can't defend.
Yeah, not everyone can be unbelievable at everything. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, but you're saying he's the best right back in world football.
Yeah.
So he's got to be really good at everything. If he's the best right back in world football.
10 out of 10 in one thing, that can overshadow some of his weaknesses, and I think it does by a lot. When you're a 10 out of 10 in something, that can overshadow you're not the best tackler in the world.
I think when you put the averages of defending and attacking between the two, Reece comes out on top.
I disagree. I don't even think Reece is that good of a defender.
Reece is a great defender.
I don't think he is. I don't see anything special in his defense. I've seen him being caught out as well. I don't think he's that. I think he's good. He's probably better than Trent, but I don't think he's like special. I don't think he's like a 9 out of 10 in defending. He's probably a 7.
Yeah, you see top defenders getting caught out. You've seen Virgil van Dijk getting caught out. You've seen Coutinho Romero getting caught out. You see all these players getting caught out from time to time.
I would say he's probably a 7 out of 10 in defending, Reece. I don't think he's anything special.
I would say he's a solid 7 out of 10 in both. 7 out of 10 attacking, 7 out of 10 defending.
Right. And I would say, and if I'm saying Trent is 10 and a 6, I'll make it 16.
But I'm saying he's a 9 and a 5.
Which would be the same.
So, but we're not talking about who's a better player. We're talking about who's more overrated.
And for me, it's Reece. How can you say he's the best in the one of the best in the league? How can people say that when we haven't?
But people can still say he's the best in the world, but still he's overrated. Do you know what I mean?
We're gonna have to get a split decision.
All right, Sammy.
Dallo.
Yeah.
You could be putting Dallo in there. Who rates Dallo?
Man United fans.
Reece or Trent? Who's more overrated?
You chose 2.
He knows it's Reece. That's why it's hard for him to say.
I like them both.
Yeah, but who is more? It's not who you like as a player more. Who is more overrated by the general consensus?
Neither of them are overrated. I'll say Trent is overrated.
Yeah, classic. Of course he is.
There you go. There you go. Trent goes in there at right back. In terms of left back, who are we going for? You're first.
I've gone Dan Burn.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
So have I.
Have you?
Yeah.
There we go. I think as simple as. I don't think he's that great. I think he's had a great season last season, but I don't think he's what Newcastle need to take them forward as a left back. Yeah,
I think when you're looking at Dan Burn as a left back, he doesn't get into any other team as a left back in the top 6. I think he's done a great job last season for what he is, but I mean, I don't think Newcastle progress with him at left back. They're going to need to buy a new left back if they got ambitions of climbing higher up the league, getting further into that top 4. They're going to need a new left back. So Dan Burn has to be the most overrated left back in the Premier League.
That's for me. Yeah.
In terms of centre back, right centre back, well, I've actually picked 2 left centre backs to be honest. The first centre back I'm going to talk about is Lisandro Martinez of Manchester United.
I went for him as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
God. This is going to be the exact same team apart from Trent and Reece.
So it's just a Trent and Reece video basically.
But Lisandro Martinez, he came in to Manchester United as with a big reputation. A lot of people clowned on him for his height, and then after after his debut, I think he actually grew into the role and became a really good centre-back. But I just feel like he gets caught out way too many times. He's very rash in his decisions, picks up way too many bookings and stuff like that. I still actually rate him as a centre-back, but the way Man United fans and Premier League fans go on about him, I think like he's way too overrated for the quality that he has shown in a Man United shirt. I mean, I was having an argument with someone the other day. They were trying to tell me that Martinez is better than Coutinho Romero, and I was like, what are you on about? Like, I was getting so frustrated with this guy trying to say that, and by the end of it he kind of agreed with me. But I mean, Martinez, he's a really good centre-back, but he's way overrated.
The fact that Martinez was even in the same conversation as Romero makes him overrated, in my opinion. He doesn't touch Romero, and there's a reason why Argentina pick him every time ahead of Martinez, and pick Otamendi ahead of him as well. So,
do you think Otamendi's a better centre-back than Martinez?
I think he's a better centre-back than Martinez? Probably, yeah. Probably. I would say so. He's got more experience. I think he's a better defender than Martinez. I really believe that. Martinez, look, obviously, if you're asking me who would I rather sign, if I'm a football club, I'd rather sign Martinez. He's younger. He's he's more aggressive. But I think Otamendi right now, he's more experienced. He's better defending. He's probably better aerially than Martinez as well. He probably is a better centre back. That's why I think he probably gets into the Argentina team because of his experience more than anything. But I think Martinez, he struggles a lot when he doesn't have Varane next to him. I don't think he can be a leader at the back. I think that he's quite rash as well. I think he's a good defender, but I don't think he's up there with like Romero and some of the best in the league right now, which I think a lot of United fans think he is.
Yeah. All right. So Lisandro Martinez goes in, and I've got a feeling we might have picked the other same centre-back as well, unfortunately. But fortunately, in terms of who the centre-back is, because I definitely think he should go in there. And I've had many arguments with many Arsenal fans over this period, and that player is Gabriel of Arsenal. I think like Arsenal fans especially go on like he's like the next Maldini or someone like that. And whenever I see him play, yes, at away games, they look solid with him and Saliba, but I think Saliba gets him out of trouble more times than not. I think Gabriel's got so many mistakes in his game, and he's just so rash. And when the chips are down for Arsenal, it's always him that loses his head, and it's always him that's making the mistake. So I think Gabriel is massively overrated.
Yeah, I've also got Gabriel in my team. Surprise, surprise. But I just think he's quite rash. I think he gives away a lot of penalties, and in the penalty area can be a bit of liability. I don't think on the ball he's particularly great as well. I've seen him make mistakes when he's trying to play out the back, and he's given away a few goals as well. I think when he doesn't have Saliba next to him, he's nowhere near as good. Remember that period when Saliba was out last season, he really struggled badly, Gabriel, to really lead that line. When he was partnering Ben White the season before, I don't think he was particularly great. They obviously missed out on top four, but I don't think Gabriel was particularly good. Again, I don't think he's a bad centre back. I do think he's good, but Gabriel has a reputation because he's partnering with Saliba. When they're together, they're very strong. That he kind of gets the reputation off the back of Saliba as one of the best centre backs in the Premier League, and he just isn't that in my opinion. I don't think he's fantastic. I think he's good centre back, solid centre back, but Arsenal fans see him as one of the best in the league, and I don't think he's that level.
Agreed. All right, so that's a back four of Ramsdale, Trent, Gabriel, Martinez, and Dan Burn. In terms of the number 6, who are you going for?
Number 6, depends who I put in the 6. I guess Caicedo goes in the 6.
You're going Caicedo?
I guess he's. I don't know. I've got 3 here. I've got 3 in here. I don't know who. They're all they could all be 6s, really.
All right. Scrap the 6. Who's your first centre mid?
All right. I'll put Yuri Tielemans. Yuri Tielemans.
I'm going for Enzo Fernandez.
Enzo?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I really like Enzo.
I like him too, but not 100 million. I don't like him 100 million's worth.
Interesting. But I think, Golden Boy at the World Cup. I think he's actually been, interestingly, in all of Chelsea's rubbish in the last, even since he's come, he's been the only one who's actually been consistently fairly good.
I actually agree with that, but not 100 million pounds worth of good. You know what I mean? Like, to spend 100 million pound on a player, you need to show proper world-class ability, not just to be good. And he has been just good. He hasn't shown anything. He hasn't been anything special, which a £100 million player should be. And he had a great World Cup. I don't deny it. He was one of the best players, got Young Player of the World Cup. And I thought he was brilliant there. But ever since joining Chelsea, I think he's been good. But in terms of the money that they paid for him, it's a massive overpayment from what I've seen so far.
Interesting. I think it is an overpayment, but when you spend 100 million on a player that age and that level, it probably is an overpayment. I agree with that, but I think he's quality. I think he's been consistently good in a really tough period for Chelsea, and I actually think he's a bit special. I've got a feeling he could be one of the centre mids who could be one of. I see him. Who, as a player who could be one of the leading lights in a Premier League in years to come. And I think he's actually been really good for Chelsea, interestingly enough. And
I wouldn't say really good. I would just say about good, just about.
I think he's been considering all the circumstances, I would say really good. The fact that he consistently keeps up his standards amongst a sea of shit, basically, which has been Chelsea over the past year. I think it's been fairly impressive how he continues to put in good performances. And once you put in a functioning team and once you sort out the Chelsea lineup, I think he's going to be even better. So for me,
I think maybe when that happens and Chelsea sort themselves out, I might change my opinion and say, yeah, you know what, he's worth 100 million and he's not overrated. But right now, from what we've seen so far, I don't think he's anywhere near the £100 million player that Chelsea bought. Yes, he's probably been one of Chelsea's better players since they've signed him, but that's not really saying much with the way Chelsea have been so far. And I think the attributes that he's got brilliant attributes, but I still think he's got a long way to go to meet those expectations of the price tag that Chelsea signed him for.
I think when you sign out a centre mid for 100 million, I don't think you can ever meet those expectations. It's like, what do you need to do? Score?
So that means he's overrated then?
No, I don't think so. I think he's potentially one of the best young midfielders in the league, in my opinion. I really believe that.
Potential is potential until you meet that potential.
I think he's not potential. I don't know how old he is. 22, 21, 22, 23, 22. I think the way he's performing, he's consistently good, and to do that at that age, I think is very impressive. And you saw what he did at the World Cup as well. He was really good at the World Cup. So I think. Depends. I guess when you spend that kind of money on a player, then it's like they can never ever live up to it. I guess so. On that.
So it's always going to be overrated.
I guess it's always overrated. I've gone for Tielemans just because I feel like he's always considered one of these very very good players who obviously had a decent time at Leicester. I think he's struggling to get in the Villa team at the moment. I think he had a very poor last season at Leicester as well. He was very heavily linked with Arsenal at times as a player who could be in their centre mid, but I don't think he's that. I've looking at Tielemans, I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's got good qualities. He's got a good long pass, long shot. I just think physically, he's never going to be in a position where he can be in the top 6 team, in my opinion, unless you've got like a lot of runners around him. And I think he's seen as like a very good central midfielder. And I think that he's quite overrated in that aspect. I think he's kind of average.
I disagree. I think that Tielemans was seen as that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but I don't think he's seen as that anymore. I think he went on a free transfer on a Bosman to Aston Villa. All these other clubs were all linked with him, and no one pushed the button on him because I don't think anyone rates him as highly as they did 2-3 years ago. So I think Enzo is much better than Tielemans, but I think Enzo is also much more overrated than Tielemans.
I think Tielemans is more. I think people.
I don't think anyone rates him anymore. Tielemans.
I think people were seeing Tielemans as a good signing for Villa when he signed. They thought, what a bargain on a free transfer. They thought, what a really, really good signing, improves their midfield. I don't think it does. And very close to joining Arsenal last summer for 25 million. Didn't get over the line, but they were clearly very, very interested in him. I just think.
But not interested enough.
Yeah, not interested enough. But they were interested. I think that for me. Tielemans is seen as a good midfielder, and I think he's pretty average apart from some really good long range shooting.
I think that's the vibe that I get from the general consensus of social media and fans and stuff like that. That's
what people were saying a month ago when Villa signed him. They were saying, "What a signing for Villa! They got him on a free transfer."
Because this is Aston Villa. If he would have gone to a team in the top 6, people would have had a different perception about it.
People would have been pretty happy with that. I think it would have been seen as a good signing on a free, in my opinion, Yuri Tielemans, if he went to a top
2 years ago, yeah. But I mean, for the past 2 seasons that he's had, he's been pretty poor, to be honest.
Even the summer, I agree. I think he's been poor, but I think people still see him as a good midfielder, and I think he's pretty average.
All right, doesn't look like we're going to make the breakthrough here. So, Sammy?
I don't think Tielemans is rated anymore, so I'm going to go with Enzo, unfortunately.
Oh, the Chelsea fan has gone for Enzo. Wow.
There you go. All right, Enzo goes in there then.
All right, the next midfielder, I'll go first. I'm going to put Mason Mount.
Mason Mount, I'm going to put Moises Caicedo.
Oof, Caicedo against Mount. One that left Chelsea and one that joined Chelsea.
Exactly.
Mason Mount cost 65 million. Moises, what cost like 100 million, was it?
115 million.
115 million. I mean, for that price, it's hard not to put Caicedo in there. But I mean, the narrative around Mason Mount and the England setup and everything, that he's a top midfielder, he brings so much to the game. I mean, last season he was absolutely shocking. This season he started shocking for Manchester United as well. I mean, I don't even know what he brings to the team anymore, Mason Mount. I mean, a couple of years ago, he was an all right player and he was good. And I always thought it was a bit of a stretch from Southgate to keep playing him over and over and over again. But I mean, I just think he's massively overrated, Mason Mount.
I was a big fan of Mason Mount a year ago. He's really gone off the boil for the last year. I think a year ago, in 21-22, he got 11 goals and 12 assists in a season for Chelsea, and it was really looking like he was kind of fulfilling his potential. And I do think he's a good two-footed player in the attacking phase. But I think the problem with Mount is no one knows what his best position is. He's kind of really fizzled out in the last year in terms of where he sees himself. Is he a number 10? Is he a number 8? No one really knows. And I think no one really knows is because he can't really figure it out, because he's not amazing in number 10. He's not amazing in number 8 as well. So I think there is a problem there. I think once someone figures out what his best position is and sticks to it, then I think he can be a very good player. But I think in the last year, I think you have a good point. No one really knows what. I think no one really knows what he brings at the moment. Is he a goal scoring midfielder? Is he a willing runner? Is he just is he an Eriksen type who can just facilitate other players? No one really knows.
It's just like a terrible signing for Manchester United, and I think everyone probably could have told them it was going to turn out the way it has so far. Maybe it can improve if they find, like you say, find a position for him. But right now, and what he's shown for Chelsea, and the perception around him is like, yeah, he's one of the top midfielders of the Premier League, but he's just not. £65 million, and he's a flop in my opinion.
Flop after 4 games.
Well, I think he will be a flop.
will be a flop. I think Caicedo goes into the overrated category. He goes 115 million for a player like Caicedo. I think it's absolutely nuts. Yes, he was good for Brighton, and I don't even think he was. I'm not trying to downgrade his time at Brighton. He was really good at Brighton. But was he one of the best centre mids in the league at Brighton? I don't think he was that good. I think he was good, but he wasn't that good. I know he's 21, so he's clearly a player who can play in the Premier League and has got higher potential. But I think there are so many players who are at a similar level to him who would have cost even less than half of what Caicedo cost. And I think that he's had a terrible start at Chelsea as well. His first few performances have been horrific. But obviously he's settling into a new team, so you've got to give him the time, so fair enough. But I also think the second half of last season at Brighton, don't think he was as good as the first half. After the rejected move to Arsenal in January happened, I don't think he was quite as good in the second half of the season, in my opinion. And so to spend that kind of money on that player, who I think is a good central midfielder, don't get me wrong, but for that kind of money, you should be expecting one of the best in the league. I don't think he's at that level. I don't think he's there yet. But he is 21, so he's obviously got a long career ahead of him. I think Enzo's been much better than Caicedo. I think Enzo is much better than Caicedo, even for that money. So I think that he cost 10 million more than.
Yeah, they're going to play alongside each other, though, aren't they?
He cost 10 million more than Enzo did as well. So I just think it's crazy money, Caicedo thing, and I think he's massively overrated for that.
I agree, it's crazy money for him. I totally agree. And if we're putting Enzo in there, I kind of got a side with the Moises Caicedo one, to be honest, because the amount of money is just absolutely astronomical. But I think he was better last season than what you're making out. I think he was one of the top midfielders in the Premier League last season. I think what he brings to that Chelsea midfield, he hasn't shown just yet. It's only been a couple of games and he's out injured now. So it's hard for him to kind of like reverse that narrative. But I think when you're comparing Mount, I just think he's been overrated for much longer than Moises Caicedo has. And yes, 150 million is definitely an overrated price tag. But I just think like Mason Mount, has just been shit showing it for much longer, basically. And I think everyone just thinks Mason Mount is this top midfielder, and he's just not. And Moises Caicedo, I think if we have this conversation in 2 years' time, I don't know where Mount's going to be, but I think Moises Caicedo upward trajectory is going to keep going up.
Yeah, it might be. And I don't think he's a bad player, to be honest, Moises Caicedo. I just think
versatile as well.
Yeah, he can play in a few different positions, but I think that he gets helped a lot by the fact that De Zerbi's system is so fluid. But I think for me, I just think there are players out there in the Premier League and not in the Premier League who offer as much as Caicedo can offer and for a fraction of the price. I think it's crazy. In terms of Mount, I just think 65 million for a player a year left on his contract is probably a lot of money. I do think he's a good player. I think Caicedo's at the moment probably better than him. But I think Mount as well hasn't shown fully what he can do in a Man United shirt. He had a very poor season for Chelsea last season, but the season before that he was very good. So he's been off the boil for a lot longer than Caicedo has, for sure.
I don't even think Caicedo's been off the boil. He's had a poor 2 games.
Yeah, for me, in the second half of the season, I didn't think it was that good for Brian, in my opinion. I think after that rejected move, I don't say he was bad, but I think in the first half of the season, he was exceptional. And I think the second half of the season, he wasn't quite as good as he was in the first half. So I wouldn't say he's been off the boil, but I think his performances haven't been at the same level as they were for the last 6 months, in my opinion. So what was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to overrated, I think a lot of people don't rate Mount, and a lot of people rate Caicedo. So from that point, I don't know. I'd start with Caicedo.
I don't know. I kind of get like the general feeling would be that Mount is a better player than Caicedo.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. I think a lot of people think Mount's rubbish. That's what I would have thought. Apart from maybe Man United fans who want the transfer to work out. I think Chelsea were pretty happy to see the back of him.
I don't know. Chelsea fans were so upset with the way he snaked them and stuff like that, and they started making up songs, getting all angry that he's gone to Manchester United.
I don't know. I most Chelsea fans I spoke to were pretty happy to get the 65 million. I don't know.
I mean, I never spoke to any Chelsea fans about it. How many did you speak to?
Spoke to a few.
I don't know. I think people think Mount is a good player, and I just don't think he is.
All right. I guess it goes back to Sammy.
Judas.
Mount more overrated. There we go. Of course he says it. All right. Mason Mount goes in there.
Next up.
I do a Ben every time. Unbelievable.
Who have you gone for?
Joe Linton.
Joe Linton.
Joe Linton.
Did you see that? Did you ever see that video? It's the funniest thing. Side point, but like, they're at the races and this woman was going around interviewing. Obviously, she wasn't a football fan or anything. And this Newcastle fan drunk off his face. And she's like, if you had a race, if you had a horse, who would you call it? What would you call him? And he's like, Joe Linton. She was like, what? What the hell is that? He's like, Joe Linton, played for Newcastle. And she's just like, excuse me? What?
Joe Linton, played for Newcastle. Fucking mint.
It was just a funny clip. But anyway, I've gone for Kai Havertz.
Kai Havertz, but everyone thinks Havertz is rubbish. Even Arsenal fans think he's rubbish.
Yeah, after 3 games, I think is rubbish, but he cost 65 million.
Chelsea fans think he's rubbish. I think a lot of people.
Arteta don't think he's rubbish.
Arteta don't think he's rubbish. That's true. I think I went with Joe Linton because I think he's gone from underrated to overrated, in my opinion. Because I think last season he was really good. The last 18 months he's been pretty decent in central midfield as like a destroyer. He's like changed his profile, but I actually think technically he's lacking quite a bit. And I think if Newcastle actually want to progress, I think people like Joe Linton, I think might hold them back a bit. And I think that actually he's now seen as like one of the best like destroyers in the league. I actually don't think he's that good, Joe Linton. I think he's a good player, and maybe because he was so bad in his first 2 years and now his performances have improved, people have started to overrate him after being underrated. But I actually see Joe Linton as a bit average, to be honest. I think he's a good player and he's much better than he used to be, and I think his position is good, but I think it's one of those where you might see if Newcastle are to improve, they might have to replace him.
I don't know, man. I don't get that, because I don't think anyone outside of Newcastle really rates Joe Linton that high.
I think they do. I think a lot of people a lot of fans rate Joe Linton. I think Joe Linton's seen now as like one of the best destroyers.
Really?
Yeah, because he had a great season last season.
Nah, I disagree. I don't think anyone rates him as one of the best destroyers in the league. I really don't.
You haven't been seeing the discourse.
Clearly not, because I've not seen any of that.
You don't rate Joe Linton?
I like Joe Linton. I think he's a good player, but I don't think anyone puts him on the pedestal as one of the best destroyers in the league.
I think last season, people were putting him in their team in the seasons, all this stuff. Like, I saw it. I just think he's overrated.
I don't know by who. I think he had a top season last year, but to put him as one of the best in the league, I think.
All right. I think everyone thinks Kai Havertz is rubbish.
I mean, Arsenal just spent 65 million on him.
I know, but even they think he's rubbish. Every Arsenal fan I've seen says he's terrible.
Yeah, but that's clearly not the case for the Arsenal hierarchy and management.
Well, they've dropped him. They dropped him, didn't they?
Yeah, for one game.
They dropped him for a game.
Let's hope he comes in against Tottenham.
Yeah, I hope so.
But I think Kai Havertz, for the whole thing, has been overrated. From when he's come to Chelsea, from Bayer Leverkusen, he had a great time at Bayer Leverkusen. But any time since joining the Chelsea team, they kept backing him.
I don't think you find one football fan who thinks he's good right now.
It's a fair point, to be honest. It's a fair point. But Arsenal just spent 65. Literally this summer, they spent 65 million on him.
It's true. And we'll see whether it looks like a mistake at the moment, but it's only 4 games in. But no one rates him.
Yeah, it's true. Like, fans don't rate him. Like, any fan I've spoken to don't rate him, to be honest. But I think, like, for Arsenal to spend 65 million on him this summer, he has to be considered in the conversation because they clearly rated him 65 million pounds worth to sign him. It's not like they signed him on a free transfer. It was just like, they actually actively went out and got 65 million. And when you're talking about Chelsea fans celebrating a player leave, they actually did celebrate Kai Havertz leaving. It wasn't Mount, it was Kai Havertz.
I think both of them now happen to leave.
Definitely more Mount anyway. I mean, more Kai than Mount, that's for sure. But I don't know. I just don't see this overration in Joe Linton. I don't think that a lot of people rate him that highly.
I think they do. I think a lot of people think he's a very good midfielder when I think he's fairly average now. In my opinion,
I think he's above average.
I think when they're now challenging for champ, I think when you see him in better games like in the Champions League, I think you'll see how I don't think he's at that level. I think he's going to be showing up a bit, in my opinion. I just think people see him as like a very good central midfielder for Newcastle, and I think he's overrated because he was underrated, if you know what I mean. Because he's improved so much from how terrible he was. Now he's not terrible. He's actually fairly good, but I don't think he's now. But now people think he's like really good, but I don't think he's that good.
I think that's what people think of him. I think people just think he's good. He's a good Premier League player, nothing more, nothing less.
All right, Sammy, what are you think?
Sammy,
can you not decide between yourselves for once? I don't think anyone rates Havertz, so I'll go Joe Linton.
Oh, Joe Linton's in there.
Sim gets his first player in there.
I get one in.
All right, let's go to left wing.
Left wing, I've gone Raheem Sterling.
Oh, I actually had Raheem Sterling in as my right winger, but I took him out. But anyway, you've gone Raheem Sterling. I've gone for Anthony Gordon.
Anthony Gordon?
Yeah.
I thought you liked Anthony Gordon.
I do like him, but I think
he's terrible.
But I mean, how much did they spend on him? 50 million? Yeah, I mean, 50 million. I think he's an average Premier League player. I think he's got a lot to improve still, but I think he's got the attributes where he can improve. But I think like the narrative coming out of Newcastle saying that they keep persisting. I don't know if Barnes has overtaken him in the last couple of games, but I don't know. I think his finishing is poor. I think he's got good pace and he can take on his man. But I think once he gets past that, he doesn't really know what to do with it, to be honest. I like him as a player, to be honest, but I just think he's overrated in terms of the noise coming out of Newcastle.
Wow, I have to agree with you. I think he's probably more overrated than Sterling. I never thought you'd put Anthony Gordon forward because you're such a big fan of his. But
why didn't you put him in?
Why didn't I put him in? Because I didn't want to be the Gordon basher because I've always been against Gordon. But for me, I didn't rate him that highly, so I didn't put him in. I never thought he was rated that highly. But I see some people rating him fairly highly. I think he's pretty average in my opinion. Sterling, for me, I put him in because I still think even though he had a poor season last season, he's had a good start to this season, but still, he only got the goals against Luton. I really believe that he was seen when he left City as like a world-class winger, and I never thought he would get back to that level because I really thought that he was him being in the City system really made him a better player. I don't think him himself was that good. I still think he's a good winger, but I think that world-class reputation that preceded him, I don't think he's that anymore. I think he's a good winger. I think he's very quick. I think he's got a good finish. He definitely made a better player at City, but I think he was world-class at City because of the system rather than him himself. And I think we're seeing that now. But to be honest, I agree. I think Gordon should be in there.
I think as well with Raheem Sterling. I've actually always thought he was a bit overrated, even when he was at City. As much as I thought he was a good player, I think he was overrated at City. But actually, since going into the Chelsea team this season, I thought he was poor last season. If you remember, I put him as my flop of the season last year, Raheem Sterling. So you don't have too much convincing for me to tell me that he's overrated. But I actually think he started this season really well. I know what you're saying, he's only got the goals against Luton. But even in the games where he hasn't got the goals in, I think he's been a shining light in the shit that is Chelsea at the moment. And I think he's looking quicker than ever. I think Poch has made him a bit more direct. I actually think in these opening stages of the season, he's playing his best football in quite a while.
Yeah, he's playing well. I can't deny it. He's playing well at the moment. Definitely better than he was last season. Still need to get that consistent, because the thing that made him the difference for City was just a goal and output machine. I think he was consistently getting 20 goals a season. He was consistently getting like 10 assists a season as well. He was just consistently getting in those positions. And first 4 games he's been good, but we have to see if he can keep up, I guess, for the whole season.
All right, let's go on. So Anthony Gordon gets in.
I'm happy to put him in there.
Right winger. Who are you going for?
I went for Miguel Almiron.
I've gone for Anthony of Manchester United. I mean, I know not many people are rating him at the moment, but they did spend like 119, whatever it was, 100 million on him a couple of years ago. For what he's shown for that kind of money.
Terrible.
I mean, shocking. Absolutely shocking. He seems to be getting progressively worse, to be honest. Miguel Almiron, I mean, he's had a good season, but I think more people think like it was a one-off season as opposed to thinking like he's actually a good player.
I don't even think it was a good season. It was a good run of 10 games that he had where he was unbelievable, scoring belters. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, people think they've got a very good right winger there. I just think he's not very good. I think he's regressing to the mean now. I think even this season, he hasn't had a very good start to the season. I think since January, he's been pretty much back to what he was, to be honest. And I think people think he like Newcastle have a good winger, and I just think he's painfully average. I think he's so poor, in my opinion. And I think the fact they didn't sign anyone on that wing makes me think that they think that he's good enough to go into this season as their starting winger, and I just don't think he is. I think he needs upgrading massively.
I was actually toying with putting this certain player in there. I'm going to give it a mention, but I know you're going to absolutely hate it.
Kulusevski, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Wash your mouth.
Kulusevski.
Don't you even dare. No chance. He's class. Kulusevski's class, man.
2 goals last season.
Don't care. He's class. 22 years of age. He's young. And he was great in his first 6 months.
That's what we always go back to. Oh, he was great in his first 6 months. But that's the whole point. Because of the first 6 months he's shown at Tottenham, he got massively overrated by us, the fan base, and he hasn't shown anywhere near those levels as of yet.
I think this season he's had a very good start to the season, in my opinion. I think he's class. I think last season...
In the first 6 months, we said he was better than Bukayo Saka.
Yeah, we did. And hasn't quite look.
So that's an overrated. That's an overration, surely.
He still could be. He still could be.
Come on, like you got to be objective on this. We sat here in this studio and we said he's better than Bukayo Saka.
He was for those 6 months.
You know what I mean?
He was for those 6 months. Those 6 months, he was better than Saka. He hasn't been last season. We were talking about it in those 6 months. He was better than Saka. Look. I'm never going to put Kulusevski. I think he's class. I think he's so good. I still think that, and I think he's one of the best in the league, a right wing. I really.
But he hasn't shown it though.
I think he's shown it.
But you saying that right now proves that it's an overration because since the first 6 months of him at Spurs, he has not been one of the best right wings in the league. He hasn't.
I think he's been. I think people were going over the top of their criticism last season in terms of how bad he was. No, don't get me wrong. He wasn't great. He wasn't as good as he was in his first 6 months. I don't think everyone said he was absolute rubbish and he was terrible. I don't think he was that bad. I think he still put in some good performances. I think he had injury problems as well. And I think he's a really good player. I still think he's a really, really great player. I think he's much better than Almiron. I think he's much better than Anthony, 100%. So
I agree with both that.
I think in terms of wingers in the league, you got Saka, maybe Olise. I don't know who else.
Salah.
Is better. Salah. So, but I think he's in the top 5.
I think Sterling has started the season better than him this year.
You start the season better than him, maybe. All right, that's 4, but he's still in the top 5.
Sterling got better. Sterling had a terrible season last year and got better numbers with him in terms of goals scored last
Played
season.
a lot more games.
But still, like Kulusevski to score only 2 goals last season is a massive disappointment. Massive.
He got 8 assists.
7.
7 assists. Not terrible.
Anyway, what are we going for?
Almiron.
Almiron? Anthony? Anthony went for 100 million, bro.
Oh, Anthony.
I get another one in there, and we're going to go last but not least. We're going to go for the striker, and you're not going to be happy with who I picked. So I'll let you pick first.
I gone Gabriel Jesus.
All right, Gabriel Jesus, he's in there. No, I've gone Cody Gakpo.
Cody, why am I not going to be happy with that?
Because you love Liverpool.
Yeah, I think Liverpool are great. I think Gakpo is a good player, but I don't think he's a striker. So I don't.
But he has been playing striker.
Yeah, he's like a false 9, but I don't think that's his best position. I think he's more off the left or in number 10. I don't think he's a striker. I think he's a good player though. I really like Cody. I think he's been good for Liverpool. I don't think he's been bad.
I don't know. I just see him go missing in too many games. Way too many games I see Cody Gakpo go missing. A bit of a ghost sometimes, and his output as well has not been anywhere near good enough for the reputation that he's got. He had a great World Cup, scored quite a few goals, but even in those games at the World Cup, I felt like he would show up, score a goal, but apart from that, he didn't really do much else in terms of the game.
I like Cody Gakpo. I don't think he's been like sensational for Liverpool since he's come in, but I don't think he's been bad at all. I think he's been pretty good. And obviously, look, they got so much competition for places. It's like one bad game, you're out the team, and Nunez comes in, or Jota, or Diaz. It's tough to keep your place in that team. But for me, I've gone for Gabriel Jesus just because I think he's a good striker. I think Arsenal signed him 45 million. It was a decent deal, but I think I just think in front of goal, he's way too inconsistent with his finishing if he's going to be a top striker. I think dribbling ability is top, and I think he's good for I think he's a good player, don't get me wrong. I just think as a striker, like there's a reason why City was so willing to let him go. He wanted to obviously get more first team football, but I just think finishing wise, I think he's so inconsistent. And if you're going to have a striker in a title race, you're going to need a striker who's much more clinical than Jesus, and I think more often than not in front of goal he just lets you down. And I think his goal scoring record was okay last season. I think he got 10 goals considering he missed 3 months, but I just think Arsenal fans think he's one of the best in the league. I just don't think he's that high.
I actually think Gabriel Jesus is a bit underrated.
Underrated?
Yeah. I really think he's a top player, to be honest. And I clowned on it when Arsenal signed him because of signing a City reject and all this kind of stuff. But seeing him in this Arsenal team, I take your point that he misses easy chances and he's not clinical enough. But I think what he does, everything apart from his finishing, I think is top notch. I think the way he comes deep, his dribbling ability, the way he contributes to the game, he lays on so many assists as well. He got 17 goal contributions in 26 games or something last season. Yeah. I think that's amazing, to be honest, for someone that was injured for so long. And I think Arsenal are a much better team with him in it than out it. Yeah,
I agree with that. Because I think he's better than Nketiah, who I think is good, but again, I don't think he's anything special. I just think, for me, Jesus in front of goal is very inconsistent. And yeah, look, the rest of his game is good, don't get me wrong. But when you're a striker in a team like that, you need to be much more clinical than he is, in my opinion, to be considered a world-class striker. And I just think he's a very good striker, but I think Arsenal fans put him in the world-class bracket, and I don't think he's that high.
Sammy?
Can I give you a coin for this one?
If you want.
I can't decide. I think they're both. I rate them both, to be honest.
Sammy can't decide, so we've got our 50p coin here. In the air, you're going to have to call it. And whatever Sim calls is going to be Gabriel Jesus. All right, you ready?
Yeah. Tails.
Heads.
All right, Gakpo.
Cody
goes in there.
Gakpo. Wow, you only managed to get one player in there, Sim.
Unbelievable.
So let's run through that team one more time. It's Ramsdale in goal, Trent at right back, Gabriel Martinez and Dan Burn. Which player did you get in there?
Joe Linton, I think.
So it was Enzo, Mount and Joe Linton, Gordon, Anthony and Cody Gakpo.
All right.
Pretty overrated 11.
Pretty overrated 11. I'm happy to go ahead with that.
All right. Happy to put Trent in there then.
No, not that's the only one I'm not happy with. I think he's so good.
That team come in the league.
Yeah, where would that team come in the league, do you reckon?
So again, Enzo,
So instead of
Mount and...
So it's Ramsdale in goal, Trent, Gabriel, Martinez, Burn, Enzo, Mount, Joe Linton, Gordon, Anthony, Gakpo.
I think I'd really struggle to score goals.
Mm.
I think the goal score... I think I'll probably finish mid-table. Probably mid-table team.
Do you reckon maybe Conference League?
I don't think I'd make it to Conference.
Not even make it to the Conference League?
I reckon like 8th, 9th.
Really?
I think there's just not enough goals in that team. How it'll be frustrating for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, to be honest. So we're going to go for mid-table. But let us know where you think this lot will finish in the league. Do you agree that this is the most overrated team in the Premier League? If you disagree, put your teams in the comment section below. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.